From LALATE News headquarters in Santa Monica, this is Mornings LALATE.
It's a big morning of Mornings LA with incredible great news about your fourth stimulus check update of 2021. A deal is likely to happen either today or by the end of the weekend. I have the latest details on that recon negotiations. What's going on? Most Americans don't even know there's a recon. What went wrong? I'll explain to you in this recording. Then, the price is right. A $1.7 to $2 trillion recon is where we're going. But which programs are in and which programs are out? I have the latest details in what I call the meat and potatoes of this recording. We'll be looking over which provisions got modified overnight, which ones got removed, and which ones got it added in. Then we turn to student loan debt, as more debt could be forgiven by the weekend, and this could be a lot of money. Then COLA gets a big raise, but guess what? This stimulus is right behind it. What's going on? It's all incredible great news. And then we look forward to this weekend with this channel celebrating its 1.5 anniversary. And 140 million views behind it. What have we learned about ourselves and our community? I have the latest details as we go into a big morning, because the toast is toasting, the butter is buttering, the coffee is brewing. I have the latest details about all the programs that got removed, modified, and added in. The latest comments from the president last night about the recon. He spoke to the American people. We got two big insights. One about corporate taxes, one about wealth tax, and also about a Bernie provision. All those incredible great news, all that in breaking news, and all the meat and potatoes coming up in this big recording. It's all breaking, it's all happening, and it's all right now on Mornings LALATE. I hope you're doing well, and boy, we could have a deal by the end of today, if not this weekend. Democrats are still staying on their milestone benchmark, and we'll be going over that recon that'll come in somewhere between 1.7 to 2 trillion. How many months, how many years of programs? I have the latest update on Mornings. Then, which programs are in and which are out? Get your pen and paper ready. It's like trading fantasy football, except for stimulus. I have the latest details of what unfolded in the negotiations as of this morning. Then, more debt could be forgiven, and this could be huge, $10,000 a student. Then, COLA getting raised, but guess what? Fifth stimulus is being talked about for the first time in several weeks, and it's coming up just in a few moments. Then, our 1.5 year anniversary. Look back on the first 1.5 years of this channel, what we've learned as a family and a community, what this means going forward, and what we've learned about ourselves. I have a lot to go over in a breaking news report. It all starts right now. So with that, subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I want you part of this incredible family where people are part of less than 10% of Americans that even know the recon exists, but you know not only it exists, but what it's in there. And in this recording, I'll have the latest update of what went on in those negotiations. Like the video and consider becoming a member. Let's cut right into this incredible recon, which is important for you to understand across the board, is that this recon will pay viewers on average about $15,000. This recon is money for individuals, money for children, money for parents, money for red states, blue states, everywhere across the board, whether you're employed, unemployed, senior, young people, SSI, SSDI, not. All across the board. As soon as it becomes law, I'm going to show you how to get upwards of that $15,000. We have 3 clusters of checks passed, but some of those checks and those clusters have been removed. Some have been modified. Let's go over all the details and the add-ons on top of that. Here we go. Cluster number 1, hazard pay, and the $4,000 of elder care. The first cluster is sort of like the cakewalk cluster, because everything seems to survive relatively well in this first cluster. They got hazard pay in there, staying in there. Earned income tax credit, broaden the eligibility, increasing the amount of money across the board for those essential workers. $4,000 a year for elder care. $4,000 a year for young children's care. Then they got money for college students for grants into the university, and the Pell Grant made tax-free. And then they got free money in there for the home repairs. Wow, that always wakes you up in the morning. Home repairs in a low-income community, yes, totally free. Federal government's going to have this in the recon. Not law yet. As soon as it becomes law, I'll show you how to get this money. But the child tax credit, not going to be what initially thought. Initially thought 15 years, 51,000, then 10 years, then 5 years. Now down to 1 year, up to $300 every month for 1 year. $3,600 on the high end. They got money in there for bikes, cars, and trucks, all electric as well. 15% for the purchase price of a new electric bike, $7,500 for a new electric car, personal use, a little bit more if it's for business use. And that is the first cluster of checks. Now let's go to the first add-on that comes from Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters, the illustrious legislator from Los Angeles, wants to add on $25,000 for the purchase price of your first-time home buyer. Any updates about it? No updates. So I have no idea if she got it in there or she didn't get there in there. I do have an update about one of her provisions that already was in there. Rent aid, like third stimulus, except in fourth stimulus. She was looking for $200 billion. It's still in there, but she thinks it's getting reduced. I think it's absolutely 100% getting reduced. Third stimulus had it at about $47 billion. I don't understand why it's at $200 billion. It's too much. But now let's turn to the second cluster of checks. And the second cluster of checks gets a little bit dancy. Here we go. Dancy for Nancy. Paid family leave, paid medical leave, childcare programs, household tax credits. They got checks in there for dental, vision, and hearing. They have pre-kindergarten, tuition-free community college, and checks in there to weatherize your home. If there's anything that's going to survive the negotiations, is weatherizing, because they have weatherizing to survive Democratic negotiations. Weatherizing, surviving, definitely needed, especially with the moderate Democrats on the roof. As I say, whenever negotiating a recon bill, always weatherize your home. There we go. So which of the provisions in here are in jeopardy, which are not in jeopardy? Tuition-free community college. We were told by Jalapal Wednesday morning it was out. I reported Jalapal's comment, and Pelosi may have tuned in and said, "What is he talking about? It's back in." So Jalapal says out, and Pelosi says back in. Well, more about that in a second. Then family leave and medical leave. That is the provision a lot of people want out, and Nancy Pelosi says, "Over my diapers, it's out." I have her and her diaper comment coming up in a second, but that provision is a battleground. There you go. Our second add-on comes from the wonderful senator from Pennsylvania, Bob Casey, 61-year-old. He wants to provide $250 billion of a $2 trillion recon for home health care. Happening? Not at $250 billion. I don't see this price working anymore. It's too much. It would be a quarter of the recon. Could it be done a smaller amount? Sure. Do it for 1 or 2 years. So what does he want to do? Provide a free home health care to those who are seniors or people on disability so that your son, daughter can go back in the workforce. I think it's a great program. I think it makes sense, but you can't do it at $250 billion. It would be a quarter of the entire recon. Let's turn to the third cluster, which is Games of Thrones cluster. It is literally like... it's like Space Invaders cluster, because boy, it is real battleground. Free school, let me tell you what's in their past, and let me tell you what's in jeopardy now. The free school meals for all checks, cheaper prescription medication, free internet, checks for elections, checks for farmers, checks for clean energy, checks for workers, and then checks for seniors, dental, vision, and hearing care. All right, let's go over those checks right now. There is one check in there, the clean energy check, that is out. It has been out since last week. It was the check that did not bring Joe Manchin ever to the table in a few months. It's out. It's staying out. I have more about that provision later in this recording. The provision for dental, vision, and hearing, I have more about that as well. That is a big battleground. And someone did a sort of interesting game with it last night. That person was the president. I have the latest update on what the president said about that coming up in a second. That is a battleground. The Medicare, the prescription medication language getting modified. And then Bob Casey wants the eligibility age for the Medicare dropped to 60 from 65. That's a World Exclusive on this channel. That brings us to our third add-on, and that third add-on is the MSC, the IRS MSC stimulus check. When you look at that MSC IRS check, there are 3 issues at hand: when, how, and where. And they all really go back to sort of the process. We have now a recon that they're trying to get an agreement on, not in paper, but in principle, by the end of the week, which potentially is either today or Sunday. Then they're going to write it up for bill for a House vote next week. That's what their goal is. So what does this mean? Several places in which they can add this, or the Bob Casey, or the Maxine Waters add-ons, and those are on the House side or the Senate side. They can add it on the House side. They can add it before we have a House bill, so that it's in the House bill, or they can add it after we have a House bill, but before we have a House vote, meaning the House members look at it and say, I'm going to make a change. And that's what Omar's office told viewers this channel this week. That's what AOC Pelosi's office told viewers previous weeks, that it'll be added on before the House vote, but not in the actual House bill. If they do it on the House side, they can do it on the Senate side during the final 2 days of this entire process, called the vote-a-rama. The vote-a-rama, the Senate vote-a-rama, is a critical 2 days in which senators receive the House bill, and they literally can come up with something totally brand new, nowhere even discussed in the House bill, and add it in there. The best example I can give you of this is the tax-free nature of student loan debt forgiven. Liz Warren and Chuck Schumer, when they received the House bill for the 3rd stimulus earlier this year in the Senate, there was nothing even about student loan debt in there. They said, you know what, we're trying to get student loan debt forgiven. But if you forgive student loan debt currently on the tax code, you have to pay taxes. So if we forgave $40,000 of student loan debt, the average American would have to pay $25,000 of taxes out of their wallet to the IRS. We can't do that. So Liz Warren and Chuck Schumer added their own tax forgiveness provision for student loan debt to 3rd stimulus during the 2-day Senate vote-a-rama. Got it in there, it became law. And that is why every time someone's student loan debt is forgiven, you have to pay taxes on it. They added it during vote-a-rama. So Chuck Schumer's office tells viewers this channel he's added it in, this MSC IRS stimulus check, on the Senate side. So does, of course, Bernie, Liz, and Chris Coons and all them. It's important to understand that Chuck Schumer was in charge of that legislative process and in charge of when they call things for a vote. Finally, the most important part is the advocacy, and that is why that big message that came in from the chief of staff of the #1 legislator in the whole process says you need to advocate until we're over the finish line. Let's read that message back on air together. We now have in total between congressional and senatorial offices received more context of advocacy from the Purple Power than the signatures in the American petition. Everyone's amazed by the outpouring of touching stories. Now they have a better understanding of how the average Americans are trying to make it through this pandemic. They have heartbreaking stories from the LA viewers, and they have the voice of the people across the nation in you, LA, because you have become too loud to be ignored. Very, very kind. Let's read the last sentence together on air, because it concerns you and it concerned me. It says, please continue your encouragement for the continued advocacy. As you are the professional voice of the people, you have become LALATE. And push until this becomes law. Very, very kind. So it's basically saying we need to push. Absolutely. You need to push before we have a House bill, after we have a House bill, before we have a House vote, after we have a House vote, before we have a Senate vote-a-rama, while we're having a Senate vote-a-rama. And the second half of this video, we have a lot coming up as the president attends a CNN town hall meeting last night for broadcast viewers. And he tells us a lot about the negotiations, the recon. Some stuff confirming my exclusive reporting. Other stuff totally brand new. But a deal is still happening. The president confirms the recon will get done. The price tag will be at 1.7, but I had the latest update. This is what I call the meat and potatoes of the recording. The latest update of which programs are in, which programs are out, which programs have been modified, and where the price numbers are going. Get that pen and paper ready if you want to keep track. It's sort of like fantasy football, except for stimulus. Then more student loan debt could be forgiven this weekend, and then one legislator is talking about your 5th stimulus. I'm very excited for you. And then we look back on the first year and a half of this channel. We'll look and see what we've learned about ourselves and this community. I got those exciting details and more as we go into the second half of this video. Stay with me as a big early mornings LA continues. But first, here's a little bit about the community page. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on Mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LALATE. And the excitement continues on Mornings LALATE as a deal's happening. The president says that in a CNN town hall meeting last night out of the latest update about his comments. And this is for a recon that'll pay viewers on this channel upwards of $15,000 to start. Incredible, great news across the board. The price is right. That recon will come in at 1.7 to 2 trillion, which will still provide you about $15,000 and about 5 years of programs. I'll go over the calculations in this recording. Programs in, programs out. Saw your questions and comments during the commercial break. We'll have the latest details on which programs are in and which ones are out, where they have been modified. This is the latest rundown on Mornings. This is the breaking news as of this morning, the latest detail in the saga of the negotiations. Student loan debt, more debt could be forgiven this weekend. It's incredible. And then we'll be turning to FIS stimulus, which is getting great news. FIS stimulus got its first major news announcement yesterday, and this is big, and this concerns you. And then the LALATE anniversary. We look back on the first year and a half of this channel and what we've learned as a family and what we know going forward across the board. I'll have all those details and more as we go into a big second half of this recording with the latest update of which programs are in and which ones are out. And this is LALATE. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record, and 140 million views as well. You're not going to see anything of this anywhere else because 90% of Americans don't know the recon exists. Like the video, 2,000-3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member. Let's turn in right now to where the state of the negotiations are this morning. The President of the United States addressed the American people last night during a CNN town hall, and boy, did he give us a good update. He basically said the recon is getting done. He would not give a date, but he says the deal is happening. And what did the president say during that CNN town hall? I'll give you a few of the comments first, and I'll come back more to them later. He says, I do think we're going to get that deal. And he says, listen, I'm very good at putting together deals. In fact, I was a senator for 370 years, he said. Yeah, I thought it was 369. There we go. He calls Sinema smart as a devil, and he said Sinema is actually very supportive of his climate agenda in the legislation. Not something we knew about before. And then he had some comments about Joe Manchin. I'm getting those in a second. One thing that he confirmed in my reporting was not new for you, but new for the American people. I had reported this all over the last 2 days, is that Sinema has told the president she will not support a raise of the corporate taxes. She will not raise a single penny on taxes for the corporate side. The president said last night. His White House aide then clarified that Sinema will support raising taxes on rich people, which was also what I was confirming. She would raise for rich people, but not for corporate taxes. Jalapal confirms that the deal will be done, and she is not giving a date on the deadline when she thinks it's going to get done, but she says it will get done. We're going to get both of them done. We're going to get them done. It's always a messy process. Democracy is not always easy. Negotiation is not easy. Their differences, everybody knows their differences. We have to bridge them and come together. At the end of the day, we'll have both bills, the recon and the Build Back Better, which is the recon and the roads and bridges together. She says this after meeting with Joe Manchin this week to negotiate your recon, and she said it was a great time spending with him. Schumer and Pelosi have told Democrat caucus members that they should look to get that recon agreement done this week so that the bill could be written next week and call for a vote on the House. Senator Chris Coons, Democrat, the first one who said is going to give you an IRS monthly check, says the gaps are closing. We're getting really close here. But December is very problematic. That's why he wants to get it done now. John Tester says we're getting to the point where it's moving along pretty well. What's really happened and why things have changed, what has changed is there was a provision in that recon, in that third cluster, that clean energy provision that Joe Manchin wanted to take it out. And finally, it was taken out a week ago, as I actually report on the channel. It's staying out. For the first time ever on this channel, I now know what was going on, and I really have a commentary about this one. The provision that Joe Manchin was so against and that was holding up the recon for all these months was a clean energy provision. What does this provision result in? Had that provision passed in the recon, it would immediately put millions and millions and millions of his residents of the state of West Virginia out of work the next morning during the holidays. Do you think if you're a senator and you're representing those people, you want to support that provision? No. It was a provision about coal. And while you may have an opinion about coal, clean energy, it was a provision that would overnight make people unemployed during the holidays. And that's why Joe Manchin had always said, unless you take that out, I'm not doing this recon. To which I have to say this personal message of commentary. Whoever thought that they should put that provision in there and unemploy tons of people in one state overnight during the holidays and hold up the entire recon for that provision, it was a bad idea. That provision should have been taken out months ago and we would have had the recon done. Rather, that provision about coal really was what was at issue. And now we know. And I think that person who put that in there needs to apologize to Joe Manchin, because it was a provision that any one of us that would have been senator for the state of West Virginia never would have supported it, because you don't want to unemploy your entire state, a vast majority of your state, with one provision of law. You can't do that as a representative official. You're not representing your constituents. All right, so now let's go to the Price is Right. The Price is Right. It's going to fall somewhere between 1.7 to 2 trillion. That 1.7 to 2 trillion dollar price tag is great for us. Why? Because it's about 5-year programs. 5-year programs pay you will be great for you, and yes, it'll pay you about $15,000 for this channel. The Price is Right. Why do we have three possible numbers, 1.7, 1.9, and 2? Let me tell you why. The recon coming out of that subcommittee was 3.5, and I exclusively reported that that's 10-year programs. Well, the president's told his Democratic caucus this week do 2 years, do 2.0 trillion. The moderate Democrats said 1.7 trillion, but the moderate Democrats also said they'll go to 1.9. After that, they feel seasickness. I think it'll go to 1.9. Let's do the calculations. 1.7 is exactly half of 3.5 trillion. So that means instead of 10-year programs, 5-year programs. We're fine with 5-year programs. 1.9 is about 6-year programs. 2 trillion is about 6.5-year programs. All great. Does that mean that all the programs in the recon will be the same duration? No, absolutely not. There'll be different durations. And this is why Representative Debbie Dingell, Democrat Michigan, says president's being very decisive. I think we're going to get this done. And Patty Murray says we're seeing a timeline and we're getting it done. And then Steny Hoyer says that there's been significant progress. Let's do the meat and potatoes, which is where you want to get that pen and paper ready and go over the rundown, programs in, programs out, which one's been increased, which one's been removed. On Wednesday afternoon, we were told by Jahalapal the following quote: "I think there'll be something for higher education, but it won't be for community college. It's coming out," said Jahalapal. Then by Wednesday evening, Nancy said, "Who told you that? It's back in." The timeline that we were told as of Thursday was from Steny Hoyer, that we need to keep everything in the 10, and so far we're doing it. We're within close margins. Nancy was saying that we have milestones of these steps to get this finished, and we keep on meeting the milestones along the way, but we need to stay on point. Nancy also said, "I've changed more diapers than anyone in this room," when addressing the issue of taking away paid leave. Big cuts still could be coming. Ben Cardin says, "I think more cuts could be coming." But Chuck Schumer said on Wednesday that we want to try to finalize the deal by the end of this week, and we're going to keep it moving on. So when asked about taking out tuition-free community college and paid leave, Pelosi said late Wednesday, "News to me, that's not a decision." So, what were the items being cut and removed or on the brink as of Thursday going into Friday? As of Thursday going into Friday, child care tax credits no longer going to be 18 years, no longer going to be 15 or 10 years or 5 years, down to a mere 1 year. Child care tax credits would only be for 1 year, which would expire right before the 2022 midterm elections, up to $3,600 per child. Obama subsidies staying in there. Medicare expansion staying in there. Battleground. And this is a big update we're learning for the first time this morning on Mornings LA. Battleground still remains for dental, vision, and hearing care. If you've been a viewer of this channel or watched any videos yesterday on this channel, you heard me say that Bernie Sanders, this is his baby. He wants these as lifetime programs. The president, per my reporting, per sources close to the negotiations, not a press conference, not a broadcast speech, not a print media, not an issued press release from the president. People close to the negotiations has said the president's told Bernie, I'm not going to do it lifetime. Maybe I'll do it 3 years. Maybe I'll give you some vouchers for a few months, which has made Bernie furious. Well, what did the president do last night? I got to laugh because this is what politicians do. Last night, the president was on CNN Town Hall, and he said that the dental, vision, and hearing may not is struggling because there's opposition to do it lifetime from Joe Manchin. As typical president, just there's someone else causing problems with Bernie, but it's not me. It's another Joe. Yeah, it is you. So the president said, Joe Manchin is not a bad guy. He's a friend of mine. But when it comes to dental and vision, I think it's a good idea. But I think there's one thing, a problem. Joe Manchin opposes it. He did not tell the viewers when they were tuning in on CNN, the president, that he's also told Bernie Sanders he's not doing it, let alone permanently, let alone maybe even more than 3 years, let alone more than a voucher. So he was blaming it on Joe Manchin. Yeah. We know a little bit more than that. Here comes that clean energy provision, the electricity performance program, the one that would have put a massive amount of citizens of the state of West Virginia unemployed overnight. Whoever put that darn provision in there should apologize to Joe Manchin and the rest of the American people, because that provision, no elected official from that state would ever agree to, because you're making your entire largest demographic of your state unemployed overnight. And meantime, by keeping that provision in there, you kept Joe Manchin away from the negotiations table, and you gave the rest of the American people delay on the recon. Whoever put that provision in there should come before the cameras and apologize, because that was a provision that was really, we now know, it was not Joe Manchin, it was the provision. That was really not good thinking. Salt, it's bad for you. And guess what? The salt cap is not going in there. It's out. The limit on state and local tax deductions out. Tuition-free community college. What's going on with that? We know one thing. It ain't going to be more than 2 years. It's somewhere between not in there to a total of 2 years. So better study fast. That's all they're going to do in there. Sinema and her secrets. Not so much anymore. Progress on that. We had Veronica Escobar, who I detailed yesterday on this channel, Democrat out of Texas, saying Sinema's not telling us what she wants to do with taxes. Yeah, she is. Apparently, she's just not telling Veronica. She tells the president, Sinema, she's not doing corporate taxes. So the corporate tax rate is not going to happen. The wealth tax and closing tax loopholes, Sinema likes, that will happen. And then, of course, the big laugh-a-rama last night on Evenings LA was the one legislator who wanted to take 25% of the recon for herself. It's sort of like the person who goes to the salad bar and takes their very last crouton and looks at you and smiles. Yeah, that legislator it's just... House Appropriations Chair Rosa DeLauro was trying to do the child tax credit for 5 years at a price tag of $556 billion, which could grow to $700 billion because she wanted to tie it to inflation, which would be a quarter of the entire recon. Greedy. Yeah, it's like the Grinch, and it's not even Christmas yet. Not happening. The rest of the Democrats said, no, you're not taking 40% of our recon, 25% of the recon away from us. Not happening. Today, will there be a deal today? Joe Manchin said they're making big progress, and they do really have an agreement on intent. So, looking good. Bernie says the end of this week is ambitious. Of course he's going to say that because the president's coming after his dental, vision, and hearing. Steny Hoyer, who is the majority leader of the House, he determines when you vote. He's the guy who says, come back from vacation, you're going to vote. He said late yesterday, Thursday, we're still looking to get an agreement in the next 48 hours. So he still says they're on path to meet that timeline of getting an agreement in the next 48 hours, which of course is not today. That would mean Saturday. We don't know if end of the week means Sunday for these legislators. Pelosi says we're working very hard and the president's working very hard. Obviously, there are challenges. What are the battlegrounds? Climate and Medicare. Medicare, you've already heard it 3 times in this recording. It's a big battleground. Climate is a battleground as well. But I do like the comment by Representative Amy Barra, Democrat out of California. Can we all add her to our Christmas card list? You know what she said? She said, I'd like to get a little more climate in there, but if I can't get a lot of it, let's just move on. Thank you. I mean, I think it's about time to say, let's get moving. And then Jalapa with the best quote of the day. Jalapa says, it's outrageous to not include something so desperately needed to be done that is the most popular part of this entire package. And it's something we all ran on. Only problem is I have no idea which one she's referring to. The quote doesn't say, in the news article didn't say what she was referring to. So maybe it's free pizza. It's so important. Jalapa didn't mention what she's referring to. Yeah, so there's something really important in there. But boy, here is what you need to know is that the negotiations will continue throughout the day, that they're looking for that finalization of a verbal agreement by the end of the week, whether that's today or Saturday or Sunday. I presume it will be Sunday. I don't presume it's going to be today. We did not see a lot of dramatic changes between between Thursday midday and Thursday evening. That Wednesday was massive movement. So and of course, some people often say the last few steps are the hardest steps. It's not particularly clear what are the hardest steps at the moment. But one of the great news is that more student loan debt could be forgiven by the weekend. And this sort of goes back to what the representative from California said. Take a good offer, or at least a decent offer, and go with it. The president has offered $10,000 of student loan debt to be forgiven, and the Democrats should take it. They don't have to close the door and say they're not going to take more. They can certainly structure and say if he wants to forgive more, he can forgive more. But over the last year, the president of the United States has always said, I'm not going to do more than $10,000. He's now offered an additional $10,000 of student loan debt to forgive, and I think the Democrats should take it. What are the 3 items he's forgiven so far? He first forgave student loan debt for individuals who became disabled after graduation. Then, in the last few days, he forgave student loan debts for people who went to work in the nonprofit sector 10 years after graduation. And then the big one the president forgave was people who went to work in the nonprofit sector for 10 years after graduation. These are people who work for the city, the county, the state, or the federal government. It only makes sense. You go to work as a public school teacher, sanitation driver. You don't make a lot of money. You don't make enough money to pay off the student loan debts. Now your debts are totally wiped away. And with that $10,000 being offered on top of that, the president should take it. It would wipe away a lot of debts during the holiday season and have people's debts reduced and those interest rates as well. COLA going up, but it's not the only thing that's going up. Fifth stimulus is coming right behind it, and we have our first update about fifth stimulus in several weeks. Everyone's benefits, if you're on SSI and SSDI, are going to raise up next year because COLA came in at 5 to 6%. Great news, because that's where we're looking for inflation under fifth stimulus. Had it become a law by now. But guess what? That's not your only lift up. Fifth stimulus would come right behind this. And fifth stimulus, how does it work? What is it? Let's go over the details. First, it's going to raise your benefits up if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, or veterans benefits one big time. Then it'll apply a new benchmark next December. That new benchmark will be inflation. It won't be more than 0. It'll be at least 1 to 3%, but COLA next year could be 0. So let's do the analysis. First, they're going to raise your benefits up under COLA next year. And once you're raised up, that is your new number. You're never going to see the amount you're getting paid this month ever again. You're never going to go back down. Once you go up, you never step down. Then they're going to raise you up on top of that if this stimulus becomes law one big time. And then on top of that, they'll apply the new benchmark next December. 3 raises in less than a year. They're going to remove the asset cap dating back to a 1980s law that says you can't stay on benefits and also have more than $3,000 on hand. It's going to go away. They're going to remove the income cap dating back to a 1960s law that says you can't work and stay on benefits. It's going to go away. And then the marriage penalty is going to end, and love is going to win, and you'll be able to marry your longtime love interest. But boy, this is the exciting one, and it comes from a legislator, a big legislator, House Budget Chairman John Yarmuth, Democrat from Kentucky, who says he's spoken to Pelosi about this stimulus, and they're ready to do it right away. This is big. What is his idea? His idea is do a very big fifth stimulus recon that has a lot of items in there for seniors and senior care and medical things and medicine and health, so that you have to do it by recon. Do it by recon. Pass it by recon. Call it for a vote during the recon process. Have every Republican vote against it. Pass it. Have it become law. And then turn to the American people in the midterm elections, would be late next year, and say, look, we gave you all these benefit raises, all this money, and the Republicans didn't want to give you a penny. That is brilliant political theater and great for your pocketbook as well. His idea has been vocalized this week. He spoke with Speaker Pelosi about using the budget tactic next year, and both of them think it's a good idea for the American people and great strategy for the Democrats. Force the Republicans to vote against the recon, and including stuff there like Medicare expansion, child care, or senior care, or depending on what we need to put in this package. And I don't see a downside in election year, because it's what we're trying to do is really popular. Of course, the comments came in from the senators this week. What do they say? I'm busy. Stop bothering me. I'm tying my shoe and trying to do a fourth stimulus recon. I can only blow bubbles and chew gum and tie my shoe at the same time. Ron Wyden said, we got our hands full at the moment. I'm doing too much. Then Brian Schatz says, one thing at a time. And then Josh Tester, very testy about it, said, I haven't even thought about that. God, needless to say, God forbid they do more than one thing at the same time. Just too much work on them. There we go. Meantime, as we look forward to this weekend, this channel turns a year and a half old. Over the last year, we've learned a lot about ourselves, and we learned a lot about the community. We learned about how we grow as a person, how we grow in our information, and how we become a better person. Over recordings of this last week, I've been looking back at different things that teach us a lot about ourselves and what can teach us going forward. And one of the things I've seen a lot is that our ability to grasp information and learn about stuff has even surprised ourselves. Can you imagine that if you look back in the last year and a half, you now know how a legislative body votes on laws, how subcommittees do things, what a reconciliation bill is, what a continuing resolution bill is. You would think that you don't have the capacity to learn these things, and yet things are learnable. Things you can learn. And it shows you not just about the content of this channel, but things in general. A lot of people think that because you are this or because you are that, you can't learn something. And it's never been ever the case. If you speak the English language or understand the English language, you can learn. You can absolutely learn. People often wonder, I'm older. I can't learn this type of stuff. Yeah, you can. I didn't go to college. I can't learn this stuff. Yeah, you can. It's amazing that if you can go into the kitchen and a family member can teach you how to make a dish, your favorite dish on the stove, and you can learn that, you can certainly learn a provision of how something happens. Or you can learn something so basic that has been part of how this country has operated for 200 years. You can learn that. All it takes is a teacher that explains the details clear enough for you. And that's what I've been focusing over the last year and a half, is making sure that things are told in a way that everyone can understand. Yeah, sometimes I talk too fast. Yeah, sometimes I zoom through fast through things. Sometimes I repeat myself because I repeat it because I want to make sure you understand it. But ultimately, people are always been surprised from this channel how they've been able to learn so much. And when you look back and say, wow, did I really learn all that? It's because that we often undervalue our ability to grasp more information. When you allow yourself to sort of open up and digest more information, you'd be surprised what you can learn. You'd be surprised what you can learn. This is a channel where I'm not really putting your hands to use. I'm not having you change a tire or changing a hubcap or go in the kitchen and dicing some onions. I'm really just trying to give you information so that you can verbalize it and repeat it back to someone else, or think about it and come up with how that applies to you. I understand this is how I do the rent. I understand how this is how I do the EIDL. And if you digest that information, then it works. There's always a person in the comments that always says something, and they are right, where they say something like, just listen, wait to LALATE, he'll explain it to you, just wait a second. The video hasn't started playing. The video hasn't started playing. You hear that beautiful music from YouTube, the countdown seconds, and someone's already with 50 questions. I got a question for this. Questions are great. Means you're ready for information. I love questions. But then there's always someone says, give it a little time, he'll explain it to you. He'll explain it to you. And that has always been my purpose, so that you learn the information. When you allow your body to really take in the information, then you know you have gone from point A to point B. There's always a person who will say something like, for rent, I reached out to my city, they said they didn't have it. And then I wonder, how many videos have I said reach out to the county and the state also? And they didn't reach out to the county and state. And it makes me wonder, did I not say it clearly? Did I not repeat it enough? Ultimately, what's important for you is to open your mind and get as much information. And boy, for viewers who have been able to succeed, use this information and excel, and think that because I'm not 20 years old anymore, because I don't have a PhD in economics, I can't learn this stuff. Absolutely, you can learn it. You can learn it and you can repeat it back to someone else. You can explain how the situation is, because information is what makes us a better person, and you can learn information to your very last day on this planet. And with that, thank you for joining me over the last year and a half. We'll have a lot more shows throughout the day, but coming up next is Noontime LA. So with that, subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I'll be staying with you and watching all the developing details of the negotiations. The situation is very fluid, so by the hour and on the hour, I'll have the latest detail. Like this video, 2,000-3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, Casino VIP. Stay informed, stay focused, have a beautiful morning, and stay with LA for more.